وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. أشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Inshallah, we're going to continue with the journey of the Quran, but some brothers suggested to discuss the statement by the French president about Islam being in crisis, which seems to have initiated a lot of debate and discussion. So it's up to you. We can do partly Quran and then dedicate some time to discuss this contemporary issue here, so that everybody will benefit. So I'm going to split the session between the two, so that we don't lose the chain and the track, and then inshallah we'll stop halfway and give some reflections on the statement about Islam and how to handle it or to deal with it. The verses that we're going to start today have a lot of fiqh in them, especially fiqh of the family. We're not really going to the approach is going to be, it's not to get into the details of these, because these are very specific, and they are relevant more if you have really case of divorce or one of the cases. There are many rules in these verses, but we're going to focus more on, we're going to mention some of this, inshallah, but we're going to focus more on the Islamic approach and philosophy when it comes to the family, and when it comes to the rules in general. So I'm going to start with verse 219, which is not, didn't get into the family yet. And then immediately after it becomes the family's, the rules related to the family. So يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر قل فيهما إثم كبير ومنافع للناس وإثمهما أكبر من نفعهما ويسألونك ماذا ينفقون قل العفو كذلك يبين الله لكم الآيات لعلكم تتفكرون. Again, Quran amazing in how it covers major rules and principles and concepts in a very short statement. They ask you, Prophet, about intoxicants and gambling. Say there is great sin in both and some benefit for people. The sin is greater than the benefit. Just remember this. This is a very important rule in the Islamic methodology. The sin is greater than the benefit. They ask you what they should give. That's now the charity. Say, give what you can spare. That's an amazing rule. Give what you can spare. In this way, Allah makes His messages clear to you so that you may reflect on this world and the next. It's an amazing. So let's start with the first part, which is Khamr and Maysir. Intoxicant and gambling were an integral part of the law, especially the intoxicant, integral part of the Arabs at that time. And the Islam is very practical religion, very realistic. So it didn't come and tell them, just stop drinking them. It wouldn't have worked. So Quran handled this gradually. Islam handled this very gradually. Some scholars say that the first verse was the one in Surah Al-Nahl. ومن ثمرات النخيل والأعناب تتخذون منه سكرا ورزقا حسنا. That's from the fruits of palm tree and grapes. You produce some things that are good, and other are intoxicant or sakara. So it was right there telling them this is not something good. Then came, I think, this verse, which is saying that there is big sin in them. They must have some benefit, but the sin outweighs the benefit. And then it was the لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى. You cannot pray while you are under the effect of intoxicants. And of course, praying 5 times a day. When are they going to drink? Yeah, they make it very hard. Yeah. And then of course came إنما الخمر والميسر والأنصاب والأزلام رجس من عمل الشيطان فاجتنبوه. The verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah that came and told them just. By that time, people were much more ready. Probably many people have already stopped, or some people have stopped. So you can tell you how Islam is really, it's not utopian religion. It's very practical, deals with the reality, and try to solve it not by decisions, because it could have been said like from day one, Rasulullah said, okay, you should stop drinking. But what's the point of asking something that is not practical or cannot be done? So Islam did it in at least 3 stages, if it's not 4 stages. That's one thing. The second is this, إثمهما أكبر من نكاحهما, that the sin or the harm outweighs the good. This is something that we really have to adopt in our life as a principle. Because a lot of time in our life, when we make a decision, we don't make a decision between something good and something bad. It's usually between the bad and the worse, and the good and the better, etc. So you have to outweigh the harm and the benefit.
Salam alaikum, Dr. Suhail. Sorry to interrupt you. We have people from outside the group. They are coming today to talk about the issue of French president. It's coming, Please, if we can go to the other subject right now, if we can,
Okay, we can.
Sorry.
I mean, I did it the other way around, because I thought that people may not be, may want to continue the Quran, but that's fine. We have time, yeah. The French president saying that Islam is in crisis, or Muslim in crisis. Of course, we always don't like these things when we hear them. And we always have this emotional reaction, saying that no, good, we are in good faith. The thing is what? Can you make sure everybody is muted, please? This is not the Islamic methodology, by the way. The Islamic methodology is to be looking for truth and to accept reality, even if it is harsh, even if it comes from somebody that you don't like, even if the intention was not good. At the end of the day, for us Muslims, we should be looking for truth and looking for improvement, and taking responsibility for what happened and try to fix it. So this is the Islamic approach. The Islamic approach is to whatever happens to you is because of yourself, and you take responsibility for it and you try to change it. Whether somebody else says it or not, it doesn't matter. It's not because of if somebody else says something that is true, we reject it because we are suspicious about the intention of the person, or because the person is not really has a hostile views to Islam or approach. That's not the Islamic approach. So we should not be really emotional when these things happen, and it should not deviate us from doing what we're supposed to do. What we are supposed to do is to look at our reality, and if there is a crisis there, then if there is a crisis, whether X or Y says it or not, that will not change anything. And if there is a crisis, then we have to accept responsibility for it. And then by accepting responsibility, then we have to work on finding the root cause of it, and then try to solve it. That's the whole idea, and the whole the Islamic approach. So Uh, do we have any doubt that Muslims are in crisis? That I don't think it requires any evidence or any proof. In Muslim countries, with very few exceptions, are lagging behind in all indicators. All. Education, university, research, economy, you name it. Even character, even akhlaq. So this is the reality. It's a sad reality, but what's the point of denying it? Whatever the French president said did not come as a surprise. That's something that I've been saying for a very long time, that we are in a very, very bad situation because of very mutilated and twisted understanding of Islam. Islam has nothing to do with our situation. Islam has created or produced a great success story in the most unfavorable conditions you can think of, and it is capable of producing similar success stories, especially in better conditions, like our conditions today. So it's not Islam to blame; it's Muslims who failed miserably to live up to this great religion and great mission and great message, and to put the effort to understand it and to fulfill it and to embody it and to fulfill it and to honor the legacy of their prophet as great person, as great leader, as a role model, as mercy to humanity, as etc. We're nowhere close yet. We are nowhere close. So my recommendation for us is not to get emotional with these things, because unfortunately that's the reality. Yes, it might be, we may object to the fact that Islam is in crisis because actually Muslims are in crisis. That's true. Even our history is not Islam that is responsible for it. It's our understanding of Islam that produced that history. So it is history of Muslims and their understanding of Islam and their implementation of Islam. It's not the Islam itself. It's like a judge who has a great law, but the judge is corrupt, and then the judge applies the law in a twisted way, or the judge is incompetent. That doesn't take anything away from the law itself. And remember, somebody said that Islam is a winnable case in the hands of a lousy lawyer or attorney. So anyway, it is long overdue for us, regardless of what anybody says, is to look inside and to look to our reality and to see it as is. We are lagging behind, way behind. And we are getting closer and closer to the point where there will be some equivalence between a country that is backward means it is a Muslim country. A Muslim country means a country that is backward, with one or a couple of exceptions. We're getting close to that, and that's very bad. That's not something that we should accept. So the point is, all these emotions, by the way, even those the things that were published that are defaming Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you will be amazed to know that some of these things exist in the books of Hadith and in the books of Sirah and in the books of Turath, of the heritage, that there are incidents which I don't believe they happened, that project Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a very bad way. And we're keeping them and we are still sticking to them just because we are afraid to say that this hadith, even though the chain might be good, but it's not appropriate. It's not appropriate for Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam to be portrayed this way. So a lot of things, a lot of insults that are addressed to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there are if you go deep and look into many hadith, especially if you open up to the hadith that are not authentic, outside the Bukhari and Muslim, but even inside, there are some hadith that portray Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a way that is totally inappropriate, contradicts the verses that say this is وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ and your رحمة للعالمين فبما رحمة من الله لنت لهم ولو كنت فظا غليظ القلب. There are a lot of contradictions or things that contradict. So we inflicted damage to ourselves, to our deen. We presented it in a way that is very bad, or some Muslims, they committed horrible things in the name of Islam. And horrible does not have to be even terrorism. The way many Muslim immigrants in Europe, they deal with the law and they cheat and etc. That's very bad. Sends very bad message, and these are very bad ambassadors of the great religion of Islam. The Muslim countries, the Muslim regimes, the Muslim societies, it's not something that make you proud, or it is not. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Yes, and I know that all of us here, when we talk about Islam, we start by trying to say you need to differentiate between Islam and Muslims. Yes, Muslims are in bad shape, but Islam is great. But that's not easy to sell. It would have been much easier to sell if we have role models, individuals and communities and societies. Something that you can point to, it would have been much easier to present Islam. So what I recommend, and I want really to get this more into discussion, so if there are reflections or questions, is to drop denial. No, we are good. Islam is growing, the fast growing religion. Islam is this, Islam is this, Islam is that. Let's drop denial. We are in terrible shape. Let's drop the emotions, the reaction. Let's drop scapegoating or finding excuses or trying to blame everything that happened to us on others. Even colonizations, you wouldn't have been colonized if you were not weak. You wouldn't have been weak if you did not accept oppressive regime for so long. So at the end of the day, it's your responsibility, nobody else. And that's what Quran teaches us in more than قُلْ هُوَ مِنْ عِنْدِ أَنفُسِكُمْ فَبِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِيكُمْ. So it's وَمَا أَصَابَكَ مِنْ سَيِّئَةٍ فَمِنْ نَفْسِكَ. Quran very clear in emphasizing that you should take charge and take responsibility. And let's forget about this emotional reaction and rejecting a fact that is very sad, but it is a fact, even if it is mentioned by somebody who you are suspicious about their intention, or someone who has hostile view of Islam, or ignorant, or it doesn't matter. لا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا. Either you like person or you don't like, they say something that is true. Actually, before they say it, you should confront the brutal facts, reality, and you should take charge, take responsibility, and then diagnose the root cause of the problem. Stay away from patchwork. All these approaches are wrong. Denial is bad. It has never fixed anything. Disavowing your responsibility or scapegoating, trying to blame it on somebody else, is bad. because that will never fix it. Justified is bad, because as long as you are justifying the reality that is deteriorating, you will never fix it. Patchwork is bad, because if you have an illness, you're not going to treat the symptoms. You're going to go and allow the physician to do diagnosis, so they find out the root cause of the problem and they treat it. What's the point of taking painkiller if it reduces your fever, but it does not take care of the problem? So these are the approaches that we are adopting. For a long time, these are the approaches that we are adopting. That's why we keep missing opportunities, we keep repeating mistakes, and our situation does not change, because we are adopting a failing methodologies or approaches that you can basically denial, justification, scapegoating and blaming, finding somebody to blame or someone to blame. And then at the end, if we have to, so it's in stages. We start with denial. And then if we cannot deny it anymore, we try to justify it. And then if we cannot justify it anymore, can no longer justify it, then we try to blame it on somebody. And then if we have to face it, we deal with the symptoms. We find painkillers, and then we don't treat the root cause of the problem. So it is about time, because the damage that happened to Muslims and to their Muslim, meaning their mindset and their personalities, is very severe and very deep. And that's very natural, by the way. It's not because we are bad people. It's like Bani Israel. It's not like because they were bad people. Living under oppression for a very long time destroy people's minds and people's characters and people's personalities. Ibn Khaldun, I think, says, "Qama yufsid akhlaq al-shu'ub." He has a statement. Ibn Khaldun, the great sociologist, and some people would consider to be the founder of sociology, is the one who states that the oppression spoils the character of people. And that's why Quran was emphasizing on Bani Israel, and we fell in the same trap, which is you accept oppression for centuries, what we call khilafah. I don't know, you can call it anything. At the end of the day, it was a dynasty, it was a family that was ruling, and someone has absolute power with no accountability whatsoever. They decide on war and peace, and they decide on money, and they decide everything. And then when they die, well, the whole country or the populations and society is inherited by his son or his brother. Now, what do you call that? Call it khilafah, call it anything. At the end of the day, it was totalitarian regime that was inherited. Yani hukum mutlaq wirasi, which is now people are revolting against it. Yani that's exactly how it was. It was mild at certain points, because one, as long that the authority is not challenged, maybe they become mild dictators, and because these people, they kept claiming that they are ruling in the name of Islam, and they left some margin for scholars and for but at the end of the day, that's what it is, and accepting that for a long time. So what happened to us, what happened to Bani Israel, as the Quran described, and living under Pharaoh for so long, that destroys. And you can see it nowadays. Some of you who go and visit Muslim countries, you can see that there is a very big damage to the character of people. People, they find it so easy to lie and break their promise and cheat and you name it. It's in a way that if you live in a Western country for a while, it becomes very hard for you to go by the same rules when you want to be honest and you want to keep your promises and you want to respect the law and you want to get your rights and you don't accept anybody to abuse their power, like a police or whatever. It becomes very hard for you to live there, because it's a totally different paradigm. injustice is normal, and people are complacent. So anyway, we are in deep crisis before Macron said this, and after, and whatever he says, and even if he goes back tomorrow and says, I'm sorry, I was wrong, now we are in crisis again. Now we are in deep crisis, and to the point that there is nothing that we can do to fix it, except that we rediscover the true Islam and embrace as a life mission, bypassing most of the heritage books, which requires a lot of filtering and a lot of sorting out, and going back to focus on the Quran and using the Quran as a reference to decide also on the Hadith and on the Sunnah of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, because it is not enough. The work that was done by the scholars of Hadith was great work, but it's not enough that you focus on the sanad, the chain of narrators, which at a certain point they became the focus and nobody paid attention to the content. And that was a huge mistake. Yes, it's the work that was done on the chain of narrator was great, a lot of scrutiny, etc. But at the end of the day, these are generations. And there are some hadith that are so long. I mean, how come somebody memorize this and then convey it like that? And you don't want us to even to discuss the content, knowing that there is hardly any hadith that you can say it is qat'i al-thubut. Qat'i al-thubut means we are 100% sure that Rasul said it. Almost all hadith are dhanni al-thubut. Likely, more than likely, most probably, almost sure, whatever. But you cannot say there is no hadith that takes the standard of the Quran. That is this qat'i al-thubut. Every word in the Quran is from Allah. Every word in Bukhari is not for sure that was said by Rasulullah. And that doesn't take anything away from the great work that Bukhari has done and Muslim. Then especially these two, which is the best books, of course. But again, nobody can say that for sure. If it is there, then Rasulullah said it. No. If it is there, it means it was scrutinized enough, a lot, more than, but still, we have to keep the Quran as the reference and not the other way around, as many scholars have done, unfortunately, when they took for granted every hadith in Sahih, and then when it contradicts the verse, they go to the verse and try to interpret it and twist it and change it and etc. so that it matches the hadith. We didn't have to do that. And we should not be afraid. The reference is in our hands. The reference, which is the Quran, is in our hands. So there is, inshallah, we cannot go wrong. We cannot go wrong by, first of all, resuming our duty, which we abandoned for so long, which is the duty of ijtihad, because the Quran is fixed and life is changing. And we cannot rely on ijtihad that was done centuries ago and thousands of miles away. We cannot do that because every context is different, and Quran is very practical religion. And you will be amazed, inshallah, when we discuss these verses next time about the how specific Quran and how practical deals with the human nature, knowing it and not just impose itself on it, dealing with reality. So Quran, actually, there are some foundational verses in Quran. These are principles. A lot of times we neglected them. And there are contextual verses. They depend on the context. We took these and we made them foundational. We made them principles. And we neglected the foundational one, which is, it can't be worse here. It cannot be worse that you neglect the foundational verses, and then you go to the contextual ones, and then you elevate them to make them foundational so that they become applicable everywhere. So that now fighting became a principle in Islam, so people are fighting left and right and everywhere and whenever they want. And they target anybody they want. What is this? So it's a major work needs to be done. But I always I may sound to be pessimistic, but I'm not, because if I'm pessimistic, I will give up. But I'm realistic, and I'm calling for all of us to adopt that methodology of Islam, which is confront reality as is, and be brave enough to confront reality as is, without trying to gloss over it. Quran, Uhud called it a failure and disaster, and called Muslim because you disobeyed and because of you have only yourself to blame. In today's language, that's very harsh. It didn't say no, nothing happened. It's minor thing. That's fine. It is because they conspired against you. No. It's a failure. It's a musiba. حتى إذا فشلتم, and because you disputed, and because some of you want this worldly life, and what is this? Very confronting. That's the methodology of confronting the brutal facts. Take responsibility. See what went wrong. Fix it, so that you learn your lessons and you improve. In Hadithat al-Ifk, when Aisha radiallahu anha was accused of heinous crime, and Muslims, they were, unfortunately, some of them get indulged in hearsay. Read the verses in Surah An-Nur. Very harsh language, very harsh language. How could you afford to do that? That's very bad, and warn them against doing it again, and very, very strong. That's how the community is built. Only by confronting the brutal facts and taking responsibility and taking charge. That's the path that we avoided for too long, and it is about time to adopt that methodology. That's the reality. Bad, yes. It's getting worse. It is our responsibility. Let's find out what happened, where we failed, what is it that we did wrong, what is it that we should have done that we didn't do, and then learn our lessons, make adjustments, and correct the path and the trajectory and move on. Confronting reality doesn't mean that you give up. It means that to find out what went wrong, where we went wrong, and then fix it. It's like, before the GPS, when we used to have those maps, and you find yourself lost, what do? You stop, you open the map, and then try to find out where are you now, where did you go wrong out of the highway, and then how you go back. That's exactly what you should do when you are in crisis. So I'm going to stop here, because this is probably topic more of discussion topic more than lecturing, and then we'll address any comments or questions you may have.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Suhail.
Assalamu alaikum.
Most of the scholars at this time, when they search about hadith, they are going behind a hadith not in Sahih Muslim and Bukhari, and try to add it to Sahih Muslim or Bukhari. Nobody questioning the hadith inside Sahih Muslim or Bukhari. Like Al-Albani, looking for what to talk about it,
Because the same problem is continuing, which is the focus on the chain of narrators, not on the content, on the matan. So until now, the scholars of hadith, or those who are specialized in hadith, they are still focusing on the sanad. And therefore, they take the hadith and then say sahahahu or da'afahu or whatever. Still, they're focusing mostly or almost exclusively on the chain of narrators, which is the science ilm al-rijal or al-jarh wa ta'deel, who is really someone trustworthy, who is someone who is known to be good in memorizing, عدل, ضبط, ثقة, etc. But until now, people did not really give the similar, or at least some attention to the content, that if the content disagrees or violates or contradicts a principle in Islam, then we should not keep using that hadith. There is no point. If the content projects Rasul in something that is less than the person, the great person we know, there is no point in keeping that hadith, even if it is in Bukhari. I mean, but Islam will not. By the way, there was Islam before Bukhari. Some people think that before Bukhari or before Muslim, there was no, people didn't know how to pray, and there was no Salah, and there was no Islam. That's not true. That's not true. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from people who dedicated their lives to scrutinize 600,000 hadith. 600,000 hadith. That's a humongous job. And coming out of these, in Bukhari was 7,000. But can anybody say, even in chemistry and chemical engineering, I mean, any process of filtration or extraction or absorption or separation, it can never be 100%. There is some impurity that always will be there. Some hadith would have probably that Bukhari, I mean, they made it through the filter of Bukhari. Even though, because, by the way, keep in mind that most of this, or all of this, happened in Dawla al-Abbasiyya under very oppressive regimes. There are a lot of hadith that were created out of, made up during Dawla al-Umayyah and during Dawla al-Abbasiyya. And some of them, especially, I don't look at any political hadith, even if it is in Bukhari. Any political hadith, sama wa ta'a, amir, whatever he does for you, you have to accept it. I don't look at that. Because these are hadith that were more than likely made up during the Dawla al-Umayyah, Dawla al-Abbasiyya, and then they made their way through the chain. Jama'a Abu Hurairah narrated 5,000 hadith. Narrated 5,000. Even Bukhari took only a small portion of them. Took only, I think, 10% or something from Bukhari, from Abu Hurairah. So it was very common at that time. By the way, there are scholars during Bukhari time. There were scholars that were rejecting some hadith. This idea that if it is in Bukhari or in Muslim, then it is true. This came later, and I really don't know where it came from. But there were very prominent scholars at the time of Bukhari or immediately after, and the time of Muslim and immediately after, who just find it very easy to reject the hadith. And you tell them that it is in Bukhari and it does not, say no. I mean, it's not acceptable, either because of the narration or because of the chain of narration or because of the content. It is a certain point in time, it's like a certain point in time where ijtihad stopped, no more. At certain point in time, there was this decision. It's like, we have enough fiqh, we don't need any more. We have to, the books of Sahih, these are sacred. Nobody should review them anymore. They are not to be scrutinized. And we all heard that Bukhari is the most authentic book after Quran, which is very bad to say. The Quran is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was done by tawatir people, and many people memorized Quran, and the way it was documented immediately at the time of Rasulullah, not centuries after. So there is, even comparing is bad. There is no way to compare. There are a lot of hadith can be reinforce basic principles of Islam or explain them or etc. But we have to turn the pyramid back in the right position, which is the Quran is the reference on everything else, not the other way around. Quran is the reference, and the model of Rasulullah, the great person we know about his character in dealing with everybody. We cannot accept any stories in the books of Sirah or any hadith that will taint that image that we have of Rasulullah. There is no, and everybody now accepts that, especially books of Sirah and books of Tafsir. There are a lot of Israeliyat, they sneak to them. There are a lot of stories from stories of people, Bani Israel, and stories of, they call them Israeliyat. They made their way to the books of tafsir, to the books of seerah, etc. They have no basis. There is no foundations for them. I mean, let's go back to spend most of our efforts and time on the Quran. And let's get rid of that idea that we cannot understand Quran, or we don't have to understand Quran. That's very bad. These have to be uprooted. Quran is the duty of each and every Muslim to try to understand it, and each and every Muslim is capable of understanding it. Now, does it mean that each Muslim is capable of extracting rules from Quran? No. But each and every Muslim should make the effort, search, look up a verse, ask, etc., to try to understand it. It is a duty, and it is possible. And like what we were told, that we don't have to, because we created clergy. We created clergy in Islam, even though there is no clergy in Islam. We say, okay, the Quran is for the scholars. We learn Quran from them, or through them, not directly. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I don't hear you.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام.
حياك الله، الله يحميك يا رب.
اهلا وسهلا.
الميتنج هذا بتعملوه دائما ريجولاري. انا اليوم والله عزمني الدكتور وجيه حيا الله.
We do it weekly.
الحمد لله رب العالمين. انا يمكن اليوم بتجوين لفتره قصيره، بس ان شاء الله I'm gonna put it on the calendar for the future باذن الله.
اهلا وسهلا بك
حبيبي، خلي لي اياك.
الحمد لله. Our pleasure ان شاء الله to have you.
الله يسلمك.
إذا في سؤال حابب أنا أسأل سؤال.
تفضل.
دكتور ونوشي، في جزء ثاني، there's a second part to what Marcon said. He's trying to integrate the Muslims in France into the society. And he has said, almost to the effect of, I'm not quoting directly, but that they are basically on their own, almost autonomous. They don't integrate. So he wants them to, integrate, to take part, instead of being kind of like a state within a state. Can you comment on that?
I wish he is honest on this thing. And this is not honest, because France is probably the least country that did any effort to integrate immigrants in general. That's why, unlike United States, people have hard time getting citizenship, even if they are born there. And then there are neighborhoods for immigrants. And I remember when there were riots in France, I remember I was contacted by somebody came from France. I think he's official or semi-official. And he asked to meet. I was president of NAS at that time, and then he said that they want to learn from the experience of Muslims in the United States and the integration, because now they realize that they have to change course in France. As they found out, they reached the dead end of that politics of actually isolation, not integration yet. So I wish if they learn from the experience of the United States and try to do serious effort to make it easy for Muslims and immigrants in general to integrate in France. And integrate does not mean losing your identity. Integrate in the way like you don't impose on them anything. It's like in the United States. It's a very diverse society, but everybody is integrated. Everybody is a citizen. But I don't think he's honest on this. I wish they do some honest and serious efforts of opening the doors for integration for Muslims and for immigrants in general, but I doubt it again. because I told you that they kept saying this, and they were trying, and we were exploring other experiences and to try to learn from them, but they have never done any significant efforts to integrate people. They're still Muslims and immigrants in general in France are still very marginalized. So, of course, any effort to make it easy for people to integrate, it's like the model in the United States. I think it's may not be perfect, but I think it's a very good model, granting people citizenship by birth, and allowing society to be diverse. I mean, society in American is not perfect by any means, but compared to many other societies, the diversity and the process of integration is more effective, and the diversity is more celebrated than elsewhere. So we know that there are still a lot of deficiencies and a lot of issues.
Dr. Suhail, some of the scholars in this country try to isolate us. They are working on it. What do you think about it?
Mr. Scholar, it's not only scholars. Even the approach of many Muslim organizations, they mean well, but at the end of the day, it reinforces the idea of minority and victimization. Unfortunately, yes, we improved a lot, especially in the last 20 years, especially after 9/11. Improved a lot in terms of outreach and integration. And that was done not by coincidence, by the way. There was a concerted effort and was met with a lot of resistance to drive the community in this direction. But we still, there is a message out there in many Islamic centers or by many Muslim organizations. Again, I'm not questioning the intentions. I'm just talking about the product, the outcome. That pushes more towards isolation than integration. And even when talks about integration, talks about in a superficial way. They don't try to root it in Islam, and they don't try to promote and reinforce the concept of faithful citizenship. And you should think and behave and deal as a citizen who happens to be Muslim, not the other way around, not as a Muslim who happens to be living in America. A lot of things, damage that is maybe unintentional, but it happens, and unfortunately even many young people, when they receive a message that is not relevant, you put them in a difficult situation, either to accept a message and a religion that appears to be very irrelevant and very outdated, or to abandon it altogether. And many young Muslims, they are in that very tough situation. And that's not because of Islam, it's because of the message out there that is not appropriate, that is not an inspiring or empowering message, that basically keep telling you that this world is not important and money is not important, does not emphasize success in career or financial or anything. Why? Because we Muslims, we were made for the hereafter. So it doesn't matter. And then we bring the hadith of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was poor, and he died even he had his dira, or some of his property was what you call the rahan. I don't know. Don't expect the word, but basically he needed money. He borrowed some money from a Jewish person in Medina, and in return, Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave him some by collateral, some of his property, and he died without even paying it. And that's one of the hadith that I found very strange. And the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam at that time, he was the leader of Medina, and there is a name of the part of the voice of the war was dedicated for Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And then he was surrounded by very rich Muslim businessmen. I found that very hard to accept. Anyway, message of isolation, message of complacency, message of justifying our situation, beautifying it. We are okay. We are in good shape. If we're not in good shape, it's because of somebody else. That's very prevalent, not only in Muslim societies, but even in Muslim community, unfortunately.
Dr. Suhail, Jazakallah khair. I agree with you. And our kids really suffering and trying to really find the right way. And we always, as you said, trying to blame the others. But honestly, we have a lot of the hadith that you just mentioned. One of them, which is, I believe, 100% wrong. The Prophet did not do any rahan for his darah. But there is a lot of terrible hadith and terrible fatawi from big names of big people in Islam that and created a big conflict in their heads. And there is special websites that specialize in attacking Islam, finding this bad hadith, finding this bad fatawi from big names. And, when our kids come back with these stories, we really sometimes suffer trying to explain. Alhamdulillah, we found the right way. And in my opinion, this relies on you and me and everybody else to do corrections for our past, correction of our religion, correction of our being that will eliminate the Islamic phobia around if we fix ourselves. And I don't think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to help us unless we help ourselves first. Then He will give us the guidance to move forward, inshallah.
Very good, and I cannot agree more. It's our responsibility. We cannot run away from it. We failed to convey to our children the beautiful religion, the great religion, the original one, and we convey to them something that is very twisted, very complicated, very irrelevant, very outdated, and that's not Islam. That's the understanding of Islam that we inherited, and they can go further. It's not even correction. It's even basically replacing. It's beyond repair. It's finding that great Islam from the roots and focusing on building the foundation before our children get lost in the details. And when we build those foundation and the framework, then when they come across something like this, they can easily deal with it and they will not be embarrassed because they know this is somebody that every religion, there are a lot of twisting in every religion. There are a lot of people who do many things wrong in the name of the religion. But they know that's not Islam. So it is something done in the name of Islam. It is a strange fatwa that has no foundation in the deen that we know, the Islam that we know. And that's why I keep saying that we really have to equip our children and newcomers with the foundations of Islam so that they become inoculated or immune to this nonsense that is done or written in the name of Islam, even by scholars or by whatever. And they will not be embarrassed because they know that they distinguish between the true Islam and the twisted understandings of Islam. A lot of work needs to be done because we are making up for centuries of failing to do that job, where we became very lazy on relying on the work of people, on the work that was done before. And when we migrated, we also brought with us work that was done thousands of miles away and then centuries ago. So the work that we have here, the understanding of here in the United States, it's the product of that we brought with us from very different contexts, and it's not even fresh. And even in that context, it was done centuries ago, which is unacceptable.
Jazakallah khair. This is the first time I'm listening to you, and I'm so pleased to the way you think, to the way you're approaching things. May Allah be with you and guide you all the way. The other thing is really we're afraid of each other a lot of times. I'm afraid to say, for example, big names. Imam Abu Hanifa, this is wrong, or Imam Shafi'i has said something wrong, or Ibn Taymiyyah said something wrong. We're scared because of the attack of the other Muslims, and I think we should be free to discuss. A lot of times, maybe what has been passed to us through the Turath, through the history, is not what he said. Is somebody made it up. But anything you say, you put a big name behind it and say, Ibn Taymiyyah said that, then we're scared. If we say Abu Hanifa said that, we're scared. And same thing with the Shia. I think if they say, Imam Ali said that, or Imam Hussein said that, then everybody would not discuss anymore. Maybe they haven't said that. Maybe somebody just, played a game, or Iblis has inserted few sentences,
And just to tell you something that, and you compare people finding hard to say that a human being, a scholar, he might have done great work for his time, but there are some of his work is irrelevant now, or he made mistakes. Compare that to those who were able and did not hesitate to say that even though the hadith is in Bukhari, but it's wrong. And compare that to Umar ibn Khattab, who was making ijtihad in verses, ayat al-Quran. The people who understood the essence of this deen, that this deen is not about literal meaning. There are tawabit in this deen, but there are also maqasid. There are things that are fixed, but also there are overarching goals. And if the things that are fixed, applying them, will violate the overarching goals, then you have to find solution. Umar ibn Khattab, and I mentioned this last time, I think, or the one before. One, he suspended the penalties of stealing in the year of famine. Suspended it. It's a verse in Quran. Then, مؤلفة قلوبهم, it's a verse in Quran. They used to be part of the sadaqat, part of the zakat, part of the spoils of the war, part of whatever comes from it. They used to go to people like head of tribes or chiefs that Muslims, Rasul ﷺ and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, they want them to stay neutral or not to support the enemy, called مؤلفة قلوبهم, and there was some chance that they might be attracted to Islam. Umar ibn Khattab stopped it. I mean, you're talking about few years after the death of Rasul ﷺ. He said, I'm not going to do this anymore. He said, your people, the people of your tribe, are already in our army. Why should we be appeasing you? And then the distribution of the spoils of the war. It used to be 80% or 4/5 to the fighters. Umar ibn Khattab, when they conquered Persia and Damascus and Sham, because before that they used to fight with Arabs, so what they got is like a sword here, a horse there, a camel. So they used to distribute them this way. Now when they opened, they got Iraq and Persia at the same time, and then Sham, and then they asked him to do the same thing. He said, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. So, but that's what Rasul ﷺ did. That's what the Quran says. That's what the Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said. That's when we were dealing with the small things, small items. I cannot take Iraq and Iran and Persia and distribute them among fighters. I'm not going to do that. It's not. So you can see someone who's one of the closest people to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and after only a few years, he kept that. What's the goal of Islam? The overarching goals of Islam is justice, etc. So if applying the literal meaning is going to violate or run against the overarching goal of Islam, then I'm not going to apply it. So he turned all of that to Bayt al-Muslimin and gave these people like salary, those soldiers.
Alhamdulillah, you put your hand right on where we give us some encouragement to talk more, inshallah. As I said when I entered, and this is the first time you attended, so please forgive me. I'm very excited to attend more, inshallah. I'll talk to you more. I have to excuse myself, but I would love to be part of this group when we keep going forward, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Brother, the reaction of Brother Talal can tell you, all of us here, that alhamdulillah, the discussion that we conduct here, people find it useful, but I think we are doing very poor job in spreading the word and inviting our friends. It's not because we need members or we need anything from anybody, but it's just to maximize the benefit. So you can see that if you invite someone, you're inviting someone to very good discussion, and not praising myself or saying my lecture or whatever. It's the whole theme, the whole approach, with the discussion, with the reflections of the whole everybody. You can see that people find it useful and worth attending.
Dr. Ghannouchi, you brought up a really good point regarding integration of Muslims in France. I knew that they were basically not treated equally, but I didn't make that connection that in order for this president to truly say yes, we want to integrate them, that they have to be treated as citizens, first-class citizens rather than second-class. Now, do you think that in France there are Muslims that are going to point this out to the French government to say, well, if you want us to integrate, are there Muslim scholars that can, effectively address this and not address the comments, not just pay attention to react emotionally, right? Other people are going to say, I don't know what the status is, the state is of Muslims in France. Are there people there that have called for, integration and put aside, the emotional reactions and to all this?
My information about the Muslim community in France is not really very deep. I know some about the organization, the way they are organized, but I don't know some of their leadership. But I'm not sure they have the leadership who are brave enough to say what is not popular and to try to lead the community in the right direction, and try to engage the government and hold them accountable for what they say, and the president for what they say, and tell them that, and make sure that by integration it doesn't mean something else. Integration doesn't mean that we have to abandon our faith or our identity so that to be accepted. The integration is to be integrated as a citizen, regardless of your beliefs and regardless of that's freedom of conscience. So it is. I'm not sure they have. I hope they do. Right? They have the leadership in place to engage and hold the principal on his word accountable, and say yes. We have always been want to integrate. Let's make it happen, and let's discuss ways to ease the integration of Muslims without putting them in a situation where they choose between their citizenship or their faith. I'm not sure. I don't know, but I hope that's the case, because I'm not sure that he is honest in what he said, because the French government didn't do any significant efforts to integrate Muslims and immigrants in general. But since he said it, I think they should engage him and engage the government and the pertinent authorities, local and national, on this, and see if they can push and get some gains, not gains in terms of selfish, but gains in terms of easing the integration of Muslims, that this should translate into policies and laws. And also they will need to work on their community also, because the integration is it's the integration from both sides. For example, in the United States, we never had issue of integration. Government always wants to integrate, not to isolate. Yet for a long time, Muslims, we had issues internally. We had Muslims discussing whether we should vote or not, and we are Muslim, whether we should respect the law or not, or whether it is okay to cheat or not, etc. There was some discussion inside and internally. Alhamdulillah, things kept improving, even slowly. and we put some issues behind us or some debates. But at certain point in time, Muslim community in the United States did not have any barriers to integration except the internal ones, except the things that we get from our culture or from twisted understanding of Islam and wala and bara and things like that. But the leadership in France, they have, which we face here also. I mean, I remember in late 90s and early to, we had, I mean, we found some resistance trying to drive the community to integrate and to engage and to come out of the gateway. So it wasn't, so leaders in France, they have the bigger responsibility or tougher job because they have to work on both, because government is not making it easy for people to integrate. And the Muslim community there, even worse than the Muslim community here, because most of them, they see themselves as temporary immigrants. And they're not also elite like here. Most of them are workers. Nothing against workers, but that makes it difficult to spread the message like this if people have low level of education, and then if people are really seeing France as temporary residents until they make enough money to go back home. Yeah. So there's a much bigger issue over there on both sides, yeah. Community side and the government and the official side. And even the society. Also, there is a very strong French identity. Yeah. There isn't something like this in America, because this is like a country or society of immigrants. So it's basically, this is an American of Italian origin, that's American of, but in France and in European countries, there is a very strong national identity. And doesn't make integration easier. Any other questions or comments? And I hope all of us, while waiting for any comments or questions, I hope all of us make the effort to do the paradigm shift, first of all, in our approach to issues. Let's not waste time talking about issues. Let's spend more time diagnosing them, because description does not lead anywhere. I know of many Muslims who will sit down for hours here and in Muslim societies talking about issues, but doing nothing about them. And talking in a descriptive way, not to diagnose the issue, not to say, okay, what went wrong and what can we do about it? Not just talking about it. Talking and venting out and blaming and etc. So, and people, they think of themselves very politicized because they spend a lot of time watching political shows and discussing politics, but they're very superficial. They do nothing about it. So let's try to change our paradigm. And if we want to discuss about, let's focus more on issues that we can do something about them. Because talking about issues that you can do nothing about them, that's a way to avoid your responsibility. Focus more on the issues that we can do something about them. Focus more on diagnosing the problem rather than describing what went wrong, why you are in this situation, what can we do about it. And then focus, take responsibility. That's every time you find yourself sitting with people, as soon as you find them drifting, trying to drift towards denial, try to close that door. You're going to find them trying to drift around towards scapegoating, try to close that door. We are responsible. And remind them even of the Quran, how holds people responsible, never said that you are not responsible for results. There is no such thing in Quran. So close that door. It's only when it comes to converting people that's you're not responsible. It's not your job to convert. Other than that, you are responsible for results. So when things went wrong in Uhud, the Quran did not come and tell them, don't worry, it's not your problem, it's not your fault. Or in the incident of when Aisha was accused. Take responsibility and then try to focus on what can we do, even if it is little, even if it is just push things in the right direction. And then time will become a part of the solution. When we are on the right track, after we understand the root cause of the problem and we start tackling them, even if we're doing that very slowly and gradually, that's fine. We are on the right track. Then time, there are things that take generations to be fixed. That's fine. But not to be stagnant and in terrible shape, and then trying to comfort ourselves by justification and scapegoating and denial and painkillers, and no, we shouldn't. So it's a whole paradigm that I'm trying my best in any circle I find myself in, and through the social media, through my personal contacts, etc., trying to help people changing paradigm. It's a total failure, the paradigm that we adopt now. It makes us very resistant to change and to improvement. And it runs against the teaching of Islam. So let's try to ditch that paradigm and then switch completely to confronting reality as is, no denial, taking responsibility and no justification, take responsibility, no scapegoating, diagnosing, and then doing something about it, rather than keep always talking and talking and talking that makes us feel good, or go to try to do something that we know it's a painkiller. It does not change anything, but makes us feel good, attending the meeting here, volunteering here, volunteering there. I'm not against that, but what is more needed is to solve the root cause of the problem rather than dealing with the symptoms. Some of the things that we are saying today, they used to be taboo a while ago. Alhamdulillah, and we're improving. We're finding that middle course from the extremes. Bukhari and Muslim, they are not sacred, and they are not to be neglected or to be trashed or whatever. There is a middle course. It's a great work of scrutinizing 600,000 hadith, get 7,000 of them, but it's not perfect. It's still human effort. And nobody can say for sure that every hadith in Bukhari was mentioned by Rasulullah exactly with those words. Nobody. There is no hadith almost that is qat'i thubut. There are some hadith, very few by the way. They are called mutawatir, which was narrated by many people to many people, etc. And these are very few. Most of the other hadith are hadith ahad. Ahad means at certain point in time, only one person narrated it. In the chain, at certain point, there is only one person narrated, or two, or three maximum, I believe. But starting from 4 becomes mutawatir. So, and there are many scholars that say that you cannot use hadith ahad of this kind for aqidah, for example. And as I told you, there are thousands of hadith that were narrated by Abu Huraira. Actually, Aisha radiallahu anha rejected some of the hadith of Abu Huraira when he was still alive, and kept saying that the Rasul never said that, or you misunderstood, or you took it out of the context. When you said, I will, inshallah, next time bring you the numbers. The narrators, the 5 or 6 main narrators, Bukhari and Muslim took out of them only a small percentage. And these are talking about Ibn Abbas and Ibn Umar, and took out of them and rejected many hadiths. So and I told you this whole thing happened at the time of the Tadween al-Hadith Dawla Abbasi. And Dawla Abbasi, very oppressive regime. And the chain went through Dawla al-Amawi. Dawla al-Amawi, when you have Yazid and Hajjaj and etc., these are the people who are in charge, and that's where hadith were. I cannot trust these oppressive rulers that they don't push people to make up hadith. and to bribe them. Yeah. So that's why I said, especially the hadith on politics, that اسمع وطيع وأمير, he does whatever to you and you just have to accept and etc. And I find very, very hard time accepting those hadith. And even if he's dominant and I mean, I'm more than likely these that were made up either by money, I mean paid for, or to please the ruler. Yeah. And these, by the way, they established the foundation of something very harmful in our history called Imarat al-Mutaghallib, that Muslims, they have to accept the person who becomes in charge and impose himself, regardless of how he comes, yani coup d'etat, bloody step, whatever he does. But once he's established himself as a ruler, then you have to accept him, especially if he brings stability or law and order, as someone says. So we're going to have to be very careful, because this Imarat al-Mutaghallib or Imarat al-Mutasallib, somebody, and if he managed to impose himself, then you just have to go and bay'ah and accept and etc. This is a principle that Muslims lived by for about 12, 13, 14 centuries. That regardless, there is a bloody civil war and someone managed to kill everybody else and then impose himself, then that's it. That's your Khalifa. You just have to accept him. This is a principle that came because of some of those hadith. That Rasul ﷺ would never have said it to justify injustice.
There's definitely a lot of work that we have to do.
It's nothing short of rediscovering, yani. It's nothing short. There is no fixing. It's like some car when it goes through major accident, say it's totaled. There is no way to fix it. Yani. It's beyond repair. Yani. Damage is it's a comprehensive and deep, affected every facet of Islam, except the ritual, the sha'air, which, by the way, they did not come from the hadith, because because people saw each other from one generation to another, how they pray and how they fast, etc. But except that, I mean, except some few items in Aqidah and etc., there is a lot of damage, and very comprehensive and very deep. Yeah. It's a different Islam altogether. Yeah. And all of this is because of a couple of mistakes that we have done, but they were major. Yani. You freeze your mind, which is the way to keep Islam fresh, is ijtihad. You decided to stop. And then you rely on a hadith and becomes the reference over the Quran. And then you accept dynasty rule and oppressive regimes that is inherited. Okay, we put this package together, what do you expect? Yeah? And this is not for 1 year or 10 years, that's for centuries. Yeah? And political stagnation plus intellectual stagnation, what do you expect? Plus dissociation from the source of guidance, which is the Quran, by these books of heritage and by books of hadith that that they can be very useful if we know how to use them, but they can become very harmful if we elevate them to make them sacred. Yeah. Like the brother was saying, until now, some people, they find it very hard to say that Ibn Taymiyyah was wrong, or this fatwa is wrong, or it's not relevant anymore, or then some people, they say, as if you probably can say this about the Prophet, but you cannot say it about Ibn Taymiyyah or Bukhari or etc. What is this? Where do we get this from? Yeah? use your, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this brain and intellect to use it. Enlightened by the guidance is not meant to be substitute for intellect, for your intellect. Is meant to enlighten it. But you're still going to have to rely heavily on our intellect. Everybody who tell you that to be a good Muslim you have to freeze your mind is totally wrong. It's really very, it can't be worse. Say Islam is not, no logic, no intellectual, no. Just take it as is. That's totally wrong. That's run against Islam. And they told you that Umar ibn Khattab, after a few years in the same context, and he was making ijtihad about verses. It's not like pick and choose. It's not like diluting Islam. No, but try to fulfill the purpose of Islam. The purpose was justice. If applying this rule at this point in time is maybe unjust, then he suspended this. He changed and replaced certain rules by others. Keep in mind at that time, context was very different, and the Arab society, Islam, Quran wanted to establish, to strike the balance between being relevant for the Arabs at that time and being valid for all times and all places. And did wonderful job. It's our problem. It's not the problem of Quran. Did wonderful job in talking to the Arabs in a language they understand. So it was very relevant to them and very relevant to that context. At the same time, it was valid for all times and all places because of its flexibility. That you can leverage it only with ijtihad. The flexibility of Quran, we can leverage it only through ijtihad. You stop ijtihad, it became the Quran that was frozen, that was addressing Arabs at that time.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Barakallahu feekum. Thank you for the day today. It's really nice. MashaAllah. So I have a question, a small question about something. When you're talking about ijtihad, so nobody can, not everybody is, he be able to make ijtihad in some topics in Islam, some fiqh or something like that. That's why they said, we have like proverb in Arabic. We said خليها في رأس العالم تدخل السلم. He's like kind of you said, so I have to take my fatwa or from that scholar. So in day of judgment, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks me about the decision that I made or I took, that's because that alim he told me that. What about this kind of...
That's, by the way, totally wrong. On the day of judgment, it's not an excuse to say that I did this because I was following so-and-so. Whether it is the leader or scholar, it's not an excuse. It's not acceptable. And you know that the verses are very clear. تَتَبَرَّأَ الَّذِينَ اتُّبِعُوا مِنَ الَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوا. There is no such thing as you come and say, I did it because, by the way, one of Tunisian president, at a certain point in time, told people to do like not too fast, but keep it. I will take care of it. خلوها في رقبتي. But people at that time they say,
actually, my question is in some specific or some detail.
I'm coming to this point.
Okay.
We need to differentiate between ijtihad and fatwa. Ijtihad is a process. Fatwa is a product. Ijtihad meaning that every Muslim, each and every Muslim should be part of this ijtihad effort. But everybody according to the amount of knowledge you have. Even by asking questions, you are part of ijtihad. So, for example, a person, Muslim start, let's say we convince Muslim and they start studying the Quran. And then they come across a verse, they don't understand it. They go and look it up. And they find, for example, conflicting tafsir. And then they go ask, I consider that part of ijtihad. This person is participating in ijtihad in the effort because it's a collective effort. And if we start doing that, if average Muslims start doing that, we're going to force the scholars to always revisit and refresh their knowledge and work hard. As opposed to, if you don't challenge them anymore and you take everything for granted, and then that will help freezing things. So, ijtihad is reflection. You read the verse, what is the meaning of the verse? What does it mean in our context? How best can I apply it? You may or may not have some ideas. And even if you have some ideas, you'd better check them with someone who has better knowledge than you, more knowledge. But what we did is we stopped trying. So now Muslims, they accepted the fact that I don't have to study the Quran, and they cannot understand it. That's bad. Now, fatwa is something else. Fatwa is saying that it's okay to do that, or it is not okay. It's signing on behalf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That requires much bigger knowledge and having a comprehensive knowledge so that you can put things in context. It's like, in universities, there are students who are doing researches, and there are experts and there are scholars. So the student who does research, they go, they lead literature review, they try to write, and then they bring it to the professor or to the advisor, and then they tell them, you need to work more on this, this is not right, etc. So we have to be good students of ijtihad, meaning that we are trying, we reflect, we think, and we reject this idea that as a good Muslim, you need to freeze your mind and follow scholar blindly. No, you shouldn't follow anybody blindly. So that's the distinction between ijtihad, which I'm inviting. I believe it is the duty of every Muslim to take part of it, which is trying, asking, reflecting, but not concluding. You cannot, as a Muslim, you read a verse and you say, based on this is haram, or this is halal. No. Why? Because Islam it's huge, and it's a science. I mean, to come up with a fatwa, there are a lot of factors that you have to put in context. It's not because you read a book on surgery, you can go and conduct a surgery or perform the surgery. You can't. There is a lot of things that are involved to get that surgeon who can enter the room and perform surgery. But you can be as a student and have a good knowledge about it, and you can ask, and you can watch documentaries and read material so that you have a good background. That's what we're asking Muslims to do. Not everybody is expected to be a scholar or have to be a scholar, but everybody be improving their knowledge continuously. And I'm talking about knowledge, not information, not memorizing fatwa or memorizing hadith or memorizing. It's not about memorizing. It's about knowledge. It's about understanding. Take a verse and fully understand it and apply it in your life is better than memorizing many verses without knowing what they're talking about.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. If nobody has another question, we see you next Sunday, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
السلام عليكم. جزاكم الله خيرا. بارك الله فيكم.
وإياكم. السلام عليكم.